All right, welcome back and thank you so much for staying with Morning Now Live. Now, let's just continue the discussion now with Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh as an author, of course, and a political commentator. We're looking at the developments in relation to President Jacob Zuma, of course, the unconfirmed reports coming through this morning that he refused to step down with the NWC due to meet this afternoon. Now, Sizwe, let's start with the march, the crossing that we've just had with Aldrin Sampier now here on Morning Live. The people marching against his removal, and some are saying that no, he should stay on as the president.
Well, look, I think in many ways this march shows just how weak the president is right now. I mean, just a few months ago, the president was sure to see out the rest of his term, and now people who aren't even members of the ANC have to march for him to stay on for a day longer.
And I'm looking at one group, Unemployed People Trust. It's shocking if one looks at the current unemployment rate in South Africa sitting at 27.7% during his tenure.
Well, look, I think many South Africans don't put much weight behind these so-called organizations, the work of which I've never heard of, apart from representing pretty much their own T-shirts. The fact of the matter is that the overwhelming majority of the South African population is fed up with President Zuma and what his leadership has represented. And now we have organizations that quite frankly have a stake in keeping the president in power as the only people in the whole of South Africa who think he should stay. And remember, this includes the ANC. So the ANC is now marching against people who are marching for President Zuma. And we've really reached a level of farce, I think, in the country at the moment, which is exemplified by what I think is quite a frivolous march.
Yeah, and the president himself thinks that he should stay on as the president of South Africa. He doesn't see anything wrong, and he said that he hasn't done anything wrong.
Well, look, I think what we've seen from the president has been quite predictable, which is a spirit of defiance, a sense that he has been a victim of yet another political conspiracy. Now, I think it's important for us to remember that this no longer has any weight when you consider the investigations that are currently pending and the outcomes of, for example, a unanimous judgment of the Constitutional Court. And so the president is really between a rock and a hard place at the moment. But here's the problem for us as South Africans. The president can still refuse or dig his heels in and make it very difficult for him to be removed via internal processes. And that will then kick the process towards the parliamentary process. And it's really a question as to whether this internal process will be robust enough to force him to see the light, or whether in fact South Africans through parliament or through general society will have to take the momentum.
Yeah, and I want us to look at those parliamentary dynamics. There's so much that's due to happen in Parliament this month only. Of course, the State of the Nation address due to take place on Thursday. That is, if it will go ahead as planned. The budget as well, motion of no confidence, the impeachment procedures. So it's a busy one.
Absolutely. I think there's so much happening in South Africa that often we just start to feel that it's normal. But look at what's happening. You've got a president who's supposed to tell the nation what's happening and where we're going, who is then going to be facing impeachment, which is the most serious possible thing a president can face, and a motion of no confidence. And then you've got a budget to be delivered to the people of South Africa to tell us where very important programs, like free education, like what's happening with social grants, are coming from. And we're in a big mess right now. And this is unfortunately a mess, I think, of the making of an ANC that is struggling to portray both renewal and unity, which to me seem to be at odds with each other when we consider the life of the president in his current role.
A quick one now. Are we likely to see any violent activities taking place should the president go ahead with SON on Thursday?
I don't think so. I quite frankly don't think there are enough people who would be willing to put their bodies on the line for a president that's this unpopular. But I think it is important that we watch out for any opportunistic tendencies, and that as a society we retain the stability that will go along with what is quite an unstable period. But I think it's up to us as South Africans to keep calm. I think this process will see itself to fruition, and ultimately our constitution and our institutions, I think, will win out against any political figures or organizations that seek to prevent the inevitable.
All right, Sizwe, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for agreeing to stay on here on Morning Live. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh is an author, political commentator, lecturer and musician, of course, talking to us about these latest developments. We're taking a quick